I was so excited to get my shipment from Last Bottle Wines in the mail the other day, full of incredible red wines, all from Napa Valley. I love wine tasting, so having this to my door couldn't be happier. Also, couldn't be more excited that today's episode is brought to you by Last Bottle Wines. If you don't know already, they're a Napa-based online wine shop with a twist. They offer just one handpicked wine per day until it sells out, and they're always at incredible prices. We're talking 30 to 70% off retail. And the best part is that there's no subscriptions, no fees, and no minimum purchase. And I could not be more excited to bring this offer right now because they're having a marathon sale, which is coming up March 28th and 29th. Even better, we're offering Dateable listeners 10% off your first order with code DATEABLE. So if you are a wine lover like me, this is a great time to join. And did I mention that shipping is 100% free? So what are you waiting for? Mark your calendar for March 28th and 29th, or get on it earlier if you want. You can sign up at lastbottlewines.com and use code DATEABLE and find out why Last Bottle is the most fun way to discover and buy amazing wine. We are so thrilled to be partnering with Hinge. Hinge is the dating app designed to be deleted. As you all know, I'm a huge Hinge advocate as I met my partner of almost 3 years on the app. Even before meeting him, Hinge was always my go-to app because I met more relationship-minded people here and had some great dates. Clearly, I haven't been on the app for a little while, but I re-downloaded it to check out some of the new features. One that stood out to me was the voice prompt, my best friend's take on why you should date me, where your friend can hype you up. Not only does this make the profile creation less daunting, but it's not always easy to see your own green flags. So to test it out, I asked Yue some fun prompts to get her take on what I could put if I was dating again. So the first one, how long have we known each other? What was your first impression of me and how has that changed?
Julie and I have known each other for almost 10 years. My first impression of Julie was that she's very social, but I've learned that she has a lot more depth to her beyond the social butterfly that she is.
My next prompt, what do you think are my green flags?
I would say she's deeply loyal. She believes in love, curious mindset, and she is fearlessly ambitious.
And then last but not least, what kind of friend am I?
Julie is the kind of friend who will always have your back, no matter what.
Damn, that feels nice to hear. So download Hinge and try voice prompts today. Then find someone worth deleting the app for.
The Dateable podcast features real stories from real people of how they make modern dating work, or not. Each episode will not only offer you a new perspective on dating, but will also change the way you date. I'm your host, Yue, former dating coach turned dating sociologist. You'll also hear commentary from my producer, Julie Krafchick, and other surprise co-hosts.
Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of Dateable, a show all about modern dating. Let's talk about sex, shall we?
Let's talk about sex.
Let's talk about sex, baby.
It's all I ever want to talk about anyways.
Let's talk about you and me. All the good things.
times and the bad good things.
Good things or bad times? Oh man,
We're going to find out. We're going to find out.
But we are about to talk about sex, one of my favorite topics. But we're going to talk about sex in a more professional way because we're speaking to a sex and relationship coach. Her name is Celeste Hirschman. She lives in San Francisco and originally from San Francisco. She is in her 40s, currently single and actively going on dates. Hi, Celeste.
Hi.
You must really love the topic of sex, too.
It's all I want to talk about.
It's all you ever want to talk about.
Always.
I'm going to brunch with you because that's how our brunch conversations always turn out. Let's talk about what is a sex and relationship coach. We know what a relationship coach is, but what's a sex coach?
Well, I think, if you go to a traditional sex therapist or relationship therapist, you're going to talk a lot about your issues, but sex coaching we do experientially. Not everybody does, but we do. So we've created the Somatica method of sex and relationship coaching, and that means we're not just sitting and talking, but also teaching people how to be more sensual and how to be more passionate, how to show their desire through their eyes, how to touch better. So it's more interactive.
So there's a hands-on component to this.
Exactly. Hands-on, clothes on. Just to be clear. We don't take our clothes off, but we do teach that whole seduction process.
And is that something a sex therapist wouldn't do?
Yeah, they can do any touch in their office. So they give homework. They might show videos, those kinds of things.
Oh, so basically you are the physical therapist to a doctor.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah,
That's a good
you're
analogy.
the hands-on.
Yeah, I like
Great.
it.
Now I'm getting what you do. How did you become a sex coach?
Well, I got my master's in human sexuality studies, but that was a very clinical program. And when I met my business partner, we both wanted to do experiential work. And so we created our own method over this last 13 years of working with clients and seeing what they really needed to learn, what they were good at, what they didn't know how to do. So my business partner and I created a method where we actually help people practice the whole seduction aspect of sex. So from touch to how you talk to somebody in a sexy way to how you look them in the eyes and bring your erotic energy. So it's more practical, experiential work. There's also deep emotional work in it, but there's that,
So very hands-on.
It's hands-on, yes.
What are some of the reasons that people come to you?
I mean, everything from sexless marriage, if it's a couple, to just wanting to be a better lover or wanting to, be better at dating, or, for women, a lot of times they'll have low desire. They want to get back into their sexual empowerment and excitement about sex.
Do you focus more on the physical aspect, or is there a psychological component as well?
It's both. It's really, and they're so intertwined,
What are some common misconceptions people have about what you do?
The work that I do is hands-on but clothes on. So sometimes people get confused and say, do you have sex with your clients? No, definitely not. Because I think what we do is actually very cutting edge. Not everybody does it. People haven't really heard of it. So usually it's hard for them to picture, what actually goes on in my office, because we have this very sort of monogamous mindset. You can't practice with someone how to be sexy. But it's just you need to learn how to swing a golf club, you need to learn how to play piano. And just imagine if you go into a piano lesson and your teacher sits there and talks to you about piano for an hour, and then next week they do the same thing.
Right.
You're never going to learn piano. You're certainly not going to learn how to be a more sensual lover or toucher if you don't get any feedback on how your touch comes across.
So do people come to you solo or as couples or as groups?
Both solo and as couples. And then we teach a big training. We actually train coaches in our method.
Is it mostly men, or what's the split men and women?
It's very balanced between men, women, and couples.
I guess I would have the misconception that sex coaches are really good at sex. I mean, I don't know if that's a misconception.
Yeah.
I would think you're probably really good at sex, and that could be very intimidating when you're dating.
I think I'm really good at sex. Sometimes I get sort of a surprise, wow, you're sexy. Makes me feel good.
And is that how you came into this field?
I was always very sexual. As a young person, I was interested in sex. I liked to flirt. I liked to dress in sexy ways. So it wasn't something where I was repressed and then kind of came out of my shell. It was a little bit more like that for my business partner, which is great because she kind of has the female perspective more, and I'm a little bit more like a guy.
I want to bang.
I want to bang.
When you told your family about this, were they not surprised?
No, they weren't surprised at all. My family is I was born in San Francisco to hippie parents, so there was no
They're of course.
Yeah.
At what age did you figure out that you're really good at sex?
I feel like I was just very natural from when I started having sex because I didn't get a lot of shame. That's one of the good things about having hippie parents is you don't get a lot of messages sex is bad or evil or your body is not okay. Our bodies were celebrated. People walked around naked. It was very normal.
And how do people know if they're good at sex? Because I feel like that's one of those things that some people do think they are and some people think they're not. What's the parameter?
Don't you think most people think they're good at sex?
I mean, I don't want to talk for all people, right? I'm assuming there's a clientele that comes to you that doesn't think that they're good at sex, and that's why they're coming. So
I think a lot of people are actually shut down around sex because we don't celebrate it as something that's an essential part of who we are.
No, we don't talk about it.
We don't talk about it. We don't think of yes, of course everyone wants to have sex, and it's a great thing to do. We think of it as trivial or dirty, or there's these negative messages that I think shut people down around their sexuality. So it's not that everybody thinks that. I think the way you know if you're good at sex is the noises that your partner is making, right?
Some people think that, right?
Yeah.
I hope
the
not,
physiological responses of their body,
So on the season finale of season 7, we had Dr. Alexandra Solomon on the show, and she teaches one of the most popular classes at Northwestern called Marriage 101. And as part of it, she talks about how sex is very important in your marriage and your relationships, but people don't know how to enjoy sex. And similarly, I brought up a friend of mine who's just turned 21. I have a very young friend. She's an old soul. And she told me when she first started having sex, she said, you know, in sex ed, I've always been taught how to have safe sex, but I was never taught how to have enjoyable sex. Right. So she had to get the jade egg to help herself understand her vagina and how to enjoy having an object in her vagina.
Oh yeah, to just get used to that feeling.
How do you learn to enjoy sex, and how do you even know that you are enjoying sex?
Well, I think it's a little bit of a process. If you are kind of disconnected from your body and disconnected from your arousal, you need to first get into just enjoying feeling your body and breathing for yourself and maybe touching your own body and learning what turns you on in that way. And then being able to relax into receiving from a partner, because sometimes people are like anxious and they jump out and they get distracted. And so learning how to really engross in the experience and sense into all of the sensations that are coming in and connect them to your pussy. Can I say pussy here?
Yeah.
Connect them to your pussy. It just takes a little while to kind of get your body up and running in that way if you haven't before.
What are some methods that people can do at home to enjoy sex more?
I think learning how to do deep breathing and also like squeezing your Kegel muscles when you breathe, and then touching your body in different ways, like giving yourself light touch or squeezing touch. I'm also a huge fan of the vibrator. If you need to learn how to orgasm, I love the Mimi Soft. That's my favorite.
Mimi Soft?
Yeah.
I've never heard of that
one. Oh, she's great because it's like small and egg shaped, but flat. And so you can use it during intercourse.
Oh,
wait, it's small and egg shaped?
Yeah, it's like the shape of an egg, but flat.
I've sworn by the magic wand.
She loves the magic wand, and she convinced me to get one, and I got one, and now it's literally a back massager, what it was meant to be.
So the magic wand is really intense. So you can put a dimmer on it, like a regular light switch dimmer. Plug it, and that way you can turn it down a little bit. Sometimes it's too intense for some people. I used to use the magic wand also, but it is hard to wedge in there when you're having missionary position, and I like missionary position. So I like to put my Mimi Soft in between my partner and I.
At what point do people like end up seeking out help? If it's a couple versus an individual, how does that typically work?
I think people wait for as long as they possibly can, unfortunately, because it's such a shame topic. And so I think people try everything else, and then they're finally like, okay, fine, this is making me miserable. I want to have better sex. I want to have orgasm. I want to be a better lover. I want people to come back for a second date, whatever it is. And then they call us. And we are really fun and easy to hang out with. I think people are terrified, but we make people so comfortable. We always get this like, wow, I never thought doing these things would be so comfortable.
I could see though why someone would feel like it was like daunting to go to, and then also like not like last resort, but in a way it is. It's like can I figure this out myself first before going to someone?
You should almost go before it is the last resort. It should be preventative care like everything else. You go to the dentist, you should go to your sex coach for your sex life too,
I agree. And especially at the beginning, like I think 6 months into a relationship, if you do a little couples therapy right there, then you don't have to do years of it 5 years later,
true.
Because you just get like, okay, you're starting to touch each other's buttons a little bit. How do you take care of each other in the midst of that? Boom, life is so much easier than if you wait until you have these horrible patterns with the person, then you're trying to dig your way out of them.
Have you ever met couples that are just absolutely not compatible in bed?
Yes.
And what do you say to them? What's your advice?
So there's lots of different things that couples can do if they're not compatible in bed. They can learn each other's what we call like hottest sexual movie and see if they're willing to guest star kind of in a turn-taking way. They can outsource, so they can open their relationship and have all of the other pieces of their relationship that are working, like parenting or, living together, which are hard things to do with people, have sexual experiences with other people. Some people find that to be helpful. So it really depends on the couple.
What makes a couple not compatible in bed?
Often, the real incompatibilities come when someone has a sexual desire that the other person is kind of repulsed by.
Like a fetish.
Yeah, it could be anything that the other person is repulsed by. It could just be like, maybe somebody is really into dominance and submission and the other one really needs something romantic. And just like the idea that their partner wants to dominate them makes them feel repulsed. So it can be something that's actually quite normative, or it can be something that's, sort of like on the broader spectrum of desire. And we think all desires are beautiful. It's just sort of like, how do you negotiate them so that you can have them consensually?
Is there anything that like people come to like physical, like size or something that you like absolutely just can't change?
I think a lot, what you can change is sort of like your attitude about it. You mean like if people just like literally don't fit together?
Like micro penises.
Yeah.
What do men do when they have a micro penis?
Well, men don't just have penises. They have tongues and they have fingers and they can wear a dildo. I mean, it's like if you want more deeper sensation, if your partner wants deeper sensation, then there are ways to achieve that. But also sometimes like a small penis is really, really good for hitting the G-spot. Or if somebody's very clitorally oriented, then you don't need as much internal stimulation from intercourse and you're more just getting the pelvis hitting on your clitoris and you orgasm that way. So, you don't have to have a huge penis. I like to say there's probably like, some percentage of women that are size queens. They need a big penis.
Size queens.
You can work with it basically is what you're saying.
You can. And so I think women need a big penis if they are very cervical in terms of what makes them orgasm, because that's very deep inside of the vagina. So you need something that can reach.
Can a penis be too big?
Yeah, for some people it's like, ouch,
So some of it's not necessarily one person's size, just the fit overall. But it sounds like there's many options.
Many options.
Many lids for these pods.
That's actually great though, because I feel like sometimes people like give up. They're like, oh my God, I love this person's amazing except for this one thing.
Yes.
Like sex isn't that great, but it sounds like they can work through it.
That's the time to get creative.
Do you remember that episode on Sex and the City where Carrie has this like very hot and heavy relationship with this guy and they haven't had sex? And then they do finally sleep together and it was terrible. Can that kind of scenario be resolved through sex coaching?
I mean, I feel like if you're starting there, it can be a little challenging. Like if you really like have already fallen in love with someone and maybe waited until marriage. I've had couples where that was the case, where they waited until marriage and then they were completely incompatible. I know, I know. That's why I say like have sex, like don't wait.
Don't wait.
So I'd love to learn a little more about people that are coming as a single. Like what are the reasons that they're coming? Like I know you touched on a few, like just confidence or just like lack of experience. Like what types of things do you coach them through?
Yeah, it can be shame. It can be like they have some trauma that they've done a lot of work on already, but they haven't really learned how to re-embrace their pleasure. So it can be, wanting to be a better lover and technique and, or you get a new partner and you're like, oh, I'm totally lost. Everything that used to work doesn't work now. And I need to learn some new tools.
Brush up on the latest.
Yeah.
We talked about how what women can do at home to enjoy sex more. What can guys do?
I do think extended masturbation and maybe doing some masturbation without porn, because a lot of times if you masturbate every time with porn, you're kind of training your body for very quick psychological based arousal and you're not getting a sensation based arousal. So if you do more like full body masturbation, like you can still be touching your penis, but like touching the rest of your body at the same time, maybe using fantasy instead of porn, which is a little lighter in terms of how intense it is psychologically, that you develop that other pathway to arousal and pleasure more. And then you have both psychological and physiological arousal.
Porn is an interesting point because I feel like there's a side of it that sometimes expectations are off if people just watch porn all the time and they expect things that happen in porn to happen in real life. Do you ever see instances like that?
Oh yeah, I think it's going to be like the scourge of the future because whereas like the people who are coming into my office now like luckily found a Playboy one time when they were 12, now it's just like you click and you can get everything at your fingertips. And it is a very unrealistic, especially portrayal of female pleasure, because it's just like right to the clit, like hard and fast, and I just,
the jackrabbit.
Oh,
I can't stand that move.
It's terrible. As soon as it will stop touching it so fast and so hard, like we just started making out. What are you doing? I'm not ready for this.
Gentle. Be gentle.
Right. And also there's other parts of my body. Warm me up first,
Right, yeah. So when you say extended masturbation, do you have like a time for that?
Yeah, maybe like take a half an hour, and
half an hour. Oh.
Yeah, I'd really lie down, do some breath, warm yourself up a little.
So what are some methods that are used in your actual office?
So I could even help somebody practice extended masturbation, but with clothes on, right? So they can be touching their whole body. They can be touching themselves over their clothing.
So you guide them through it. Got it.
And help them breathe and help them make sound, help them move their bodies, just sort of get into it more.
Do you think your clients fantasize about you?
I hope so.
So that's a great segue to your own life, because I would love to hear how this has impacted your own dating life.
And I want to say something about I hope so, because it's not like an egotistical thing. It's like People should be fantasizing about all sorts of things all the
True.
time, and they are, and I want to encourage people to have all of the fantasies that they have and not feel like, oh, I'm not allowed to think about, you because you're my coach or something like that,
That's true. Very true.
But yes, my own dating life.
How has being a sex coach affected your own dating life?
I do think on the one hand, I can be a little bit intimidating at first. But I think also what people realize once that we start, I'm like, hey, I like this and this feels good. And I'm super positive and encouraging. So I think in some ways I might be easier to figure out because I'm very communicative. I didn't used to be. It took me a long time, actually, even of doing this work, because it's hard to tell somebody what you want while you're having sex.
It's about feedback. Right?
Yes.
And I think a lot of people just haven't given that feedback or heard that feedback. Yeah. So we just end up doing the same things over and over again.
Right.
Exactly.
So I could see as a guy or whoever you're dating, I could see them being intimidated. Like, am I going to be like analyzed while I'm having sex? Yeah. Does that ever come up?
Totally. And I mean, in some ways, they are being analyzed because I can't totally shut that part of myself off, and at the same time, I'm not analyzing them to criticize them. I'm more just like, what would be better for me? So I'll say like, oh, I actually really like to be bitten. Can you and then I'll show like, this is a place, on my shoulder where I like to be bitten. Could you bite a little harder? And I'm teaching them what turns me on the most as we're going along.
And you say you do put it on your dating profile. Yeah. What do you say exactly?
Yeah, I just say, this is for me, but this is my work, so people can kind of like have some idea of what they're coming into.
Percentage-wise, what percentage of people use that as their pickup line or like a starting point when they talk to you?
I think not very many.
No?
Yeah, not very many. More, I mean, sometimes they'll say interesting word, but that's usually, no, they don't really say that.
Have you ever been on a date when someone didn't like read it in your profile and it comes out later?
Yes. Like, oh, really? Okay. So I'm always kind of shocked by that because it's right there.
It's a good test to see if they read your profile or not.
Yeah, they're just looking at my picture.
Like, it was front and center.
Yeah, right there. Yeah. Sex coach. Because Julie puts it on her, well, she's not a sex coach, but DATEABLE podcast.
Yeah, well, this is a new recent experiment.
On her profile. I've done it in my own profile. And I would say more times than not, people would use that as like a starting, like a conversation starter.
Had a lot of people recently not bring it up. So they're either not reading the profile or they don't know how to bring it up. One of the two.
The line I always get is, am I going to end up on your podcast?
Yeah.
So I'm sure a lot of people have said,
are you just trying to get clients?
Right. Yeah. Or are you doing this for research?
Right.
Research is a big one. Yeah.
I'm sure that sex has evolved over the years. There's new toys, there's new methods, there's new porn out there. How do you keep updated with all this new information from year to year?
I feel like I keep updated largely like hearing my clients talk about what turns them on, because one of the key conversations that I always have is to try to get to the bottom of like what's really arousing to people, and not just like what they want to do in bed, but sort of like what they want to feel and what the buildup they want to have is. And sort of, a lot about the emotional content in addition to the sensual content of what they want. So then I get to hear all sorts of interesting stories.
I'm sure. What are some new things that have come up in recent years?
Oh, I mean, new. Well, one of the most surprising ones that I actually just read about this. Have you heard of VOR?
No. What's that?
Yeah, so it's where people want to be devoured by a large monster. VORE. I know. So how do you do that in bed? I think it's a lot fantasy. Maybe you might put your hand in somebody's mouth. I mean, I guess you can get some of the feeling, but the imagery of VOR is all just like people climbing into these huge like alien beings and like, I don't know, sort of being devoured or drooled all over.
This came up with multiple clients?
No, this was something that I more read about. Okay, I read about it, but actually one of our practitioners did have someone who was into it.
Got it.
Yeah. Every desire is out there.
Well, I think this is a good segue of like, how has this opened your mind up to sex and sexuality?
Yeah, because it seems like you come from a very liberal family, but then
you hear stuff like this.
Yeah.
Right?
Have you, what are the points in your practice where you kind of think to yourself, wow, okay, I'm actually more vanilla than I think?
Let's take a quick break and talk about support. Supportive bras, that is. For anyone who wears bras, we can all bond over the fact that it's a frustrating process. Finding the right size is always a challenge, and once you do, it may have pokey wires or itchy fabric. I am so happy to have found Harper Wilde because they make the whole bra experience so pleasant. Harper Wilde bras are supportive and comfy with adjustable straps and a J-hook in the back so you can switch to a racer back anytime. You can easily find your size through their online fit quiz, and then you'll be pleasantly surprised at how affordable their bras are. I love the one I got because it goes so smoothly under even my silk blouses, and I feel good because a portion of each sale supports mentorship and educational programming for girls 6 to 18. It's time to start lifting up your ladies with Harper Wilde. Go to harperwilde.com/dateable and use the promo code DATEABLE to get 15% off your first purchase. That's harperwilde, spelled WILDE.com/dateable. That's spelled DATEABLE for 15% off your first purchase. harperwilde.com/dateable. Now back to the show.
What are the points in your practice where you kind of think to yourself, wow, okay, I'm actually more vanilla than I think?
Yeah, I feel like there have been people who've come in and had, interesting fantasies where at first I was a little bit surprised, but then I was like, okay, I get it. Like I had this one client, he really, again, another sort of devouring fantasy, but he would picture like being eaten by women. And it was actually really fun to kind of role play it with like, so he liked to be like tied down, and I would sort of tell him this story, like imagine we're all standing around you and we have our forks and knives. He was so excited that somebody was just like fully accepting him around it. And I was like, whatever our content is in our psychology, it's just something that makes us like, you can imagine why somebody would want to feel devoured. It's like, I want every single part of you, that's a desire.
Yeah,
interesting.
That's true.
Right?
So I think the article we found you in originally, there was like a few sex coaches and therapists listed, and most of them were bisexual. Is that just coincidence, or do you feel like that's actually common because you're just more open?
I think maybe people would be more interested in being a sex coach if they have more open attitudes towards sex, but I don't know. I'm not sure if there's more bisexual sex coaches than not.
But you're bisexual, right?
I am, yeah.
It's so interesting because I think about part of it is I think people come to you knowing that you have this expertise in a field that is also kind of like people don't want to talk about it, right?
Yes.
But on the other hand, there's like this underground sexual liberation that's also happening where people are just doing all kinds of sex things and not really knowing if they like it or not. So I guess how does someone go about, like maybe there's like a worksheet of how to get to the bottom of what you really like?
Yeah, and that comes from like really checking what your boundaries are. So I think people often just bypass themselves and they're not even listening to their body when their body says, no, I don't want this, So I'm not just teaching people like have every different kind of sex. I want people to get really picky and specific and not do things that they don't want to do and be really clear on their boundaries and definitely do the things that they want to do the most and teach their partners how to give that to them and learn what their partners want from them, So I think it's like to dial down and really get to the bottom of it.
Do you ever tell your clients to go to sex parties or play parties?
Yeah, I mean, for sure, if they want to learn more. And some people are just interested in like opening their relationship or they want to try swinging. They come to me because they don't know how to do that in a way where it's going to feel like safe and comfortable for them. So I help them negotiate it. And then sometimes I even take a field trip, with a couple or an individual to a sex party and we talk about it.
Field trip.
Is there a school bus?
Everyone pulls up, ready to go.
Exactly.
What if you're a couple who just enjoys vanilla missionary sex all the time and it's just pleasurable for both people? Do you think this couple they really know what they want, or they just haven't explored enough to expand outside the horizon?
I think if it ain't broken, don't fix it.
Yeah? Okay.
If everybody's happy with what's going on, then great. I always celebrate like, yes, you know what you want. You're doing it,
So I guess have you pushed your own boundaries at all and either found something new or something new that didn't work?
I mean, that's a good question. I think the biggest place where I have pushed my boundaries is around dominating because I'm more generally submissive in bed, but I have had partners who wanted me to be more dominant in different ways. And that's been been fun, to explore that part of myself. It also feels like a lot of responsibility.
Yeah.
Because it's like, oh, I'd rather just be like the one who's being told what to do.
Yeah, true.
As opposed to like, wow, I need to like try to give this person the experience that they're hoping for from that dominant place.
Interesting.
And what's something that you've learned recently about yourself that you didn't know, let's say 2 years ago?
I think I didn't know. I do like power play and I like both sides of it. Like there are times when I do feel like I want to be very powerful sexually. I more like to be powerless in experiences. So learning that I really like to be powerful too. And have this, I think the feeling that I like to have these days is like, it's all mine. Like I can have as much as I want, this sort of like queen of the universe.
You're queendom. That's what I say. It's your queendom.
Like, are you current state, do you sleep with men and women or just one at this point?
I'm much more dating men right now. Recently had a threesome with a man and a woman, but I'm dating men.
And were you bisexual before your practice or did that become open because of it?
I came out as bisexual when I was 19.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
way before.
Way before.
When you do get into relationships, are they monogamous relationship or are you poly, open?
I've had phases of monogamy, but since I'm in my early 20s, I have had mostly open relationship of some kind or another.
What are your rules in open relationships?
It's been so different. Like early on, I was dating men. I was in long-term relationships with men, but I still wanted to be with women. And so it was like I could see other people, women, but maybe they couldn't see anyone else, or we would only have threesomes together. And then, later on, like in my marriage, we at first were only seeing other women. Then eventually I started seeing other men also. And he started seeing some women by himself when at first we were just doing it together. So my experience is that it shifts and it's renegotiable. And that's how I want people to do relationship anyway, instead of thinking like, you promised me this and it's going to be like that forever. It's like, well, people change. So if you're not willing to roll with the punches of the changing of relationships, it's very hard to sustain long-term relationship, not just around monogamy and open, but, just in general. Like, don't think that the person you married at 25 is going to be the person you're hanging out with at 45.
No. Or the same sexual desires necessarily,
exactly.
because
We're
once you do that
changing.
100 times, it might not be as interesting anymore.
Yeah, you might want variety
We always hear this story where we hear about women losing their libido as they age and not having the desire as much. But it also happens to men, and I don't think we discuss it as much because we just assume men want sex all the time.
Right. Especially after like a big life change like children, for example. I hear it a lot in those situations.
Or when they age and their hormones deplete. I don't know. That's not the right term, but
No, it is the right term. And I mean, I get a little bit tired of that story because actually what some research has shown is that women get a little bit bored more easily than men, which I think is the opposite of what our cultural training says. And so a lot of times I think women's libido goes down because they're not really interested in having sex with their long-term partner, but they start to say, well, it must be the estrogen. They start to blame it on their hormones. Not that hormones don't go down, and it certainly changes how much we want to have sex, but I do feel like there's a lot going on there. Like they might just not be getting the sex that they want, or they're bored with their partner, or they're bored with the kind of, so I don't buy it if people come in just, oh, my hormones, or, and right after you have kids, for sure, it's like really hard to want to have sex again. You're exhausted. Right. But, once they're a little bit older, if it's still the same story, then I start to wonder, what's going on here.
And what about for men when they say they're losing the desire? What are some things that they can do? Yeah,
I think it can be hormones going down. I think a lot of times, again, with our monogamous assumption, what a lot of people do is they shut down their desire altogether. Like they never even like check anyone else out. Or they feel like, okay, I only have to put my desire in this one direction. And so the sort of like the river of desire that's like flowing starts to get smaller and smaller and smaller, becomes this tiny little like trickle because they're not just like, I'm a sexual being and I walk around in the world as a sexual being. They're like, oh, sex is this compartmentalized thing and it only happens over here and it only happens with this one person. So it's like
they're repressing it.
Yeah. And I think it's like, well, I just try to help people, like, you can keep your agreements, right? Don't cheat if you've said I'm not going to be with other people, but like, don't shut down this part of yourself and like only have it in these tiny little moments in your life.
Let's hold that thought for a sec. We'll get right back to it. This episode is sponsored by Via. We all know there are things that can help set the mood in the bedroom, but did you know a little THC could also do that? Yes, Via has developed a unique blend of pleasure-enhancing cannabinoids, libido-strengthening herbs, and a low dose of THC all into one mind-blowing gummy called High Love. This gummy, wow, it will awaken your senses, increase blood flow, and intensify any sexual experience. I've been pleasantly surprised by the High love gummies because it is just the right amount of THC for me to have a good time without feeling sleepy. And hey, if THC is not your thing, Via also offers a wide array of other gummies without it. And everything legally ships in 50 states with discreet packaging directly to your door. So if you're over 21, you can get 15% off and a free pack of award-winning Dreams THC plus CBN sleep gummies with our exclusive code DATEABLE at viahemp.com. That's VIIAHEMP.com. Let the gummies work their magic. Head to viahemp.com and use the code DATEABLE to receive 15% off and one free sample of their Sleepy Dream gummies. That's viahemp.com and use the code DATEABLE at checkout. Take your passion and pleasure to a whole new level with high love from Via Hemp.
As you know, I recently left my corporate job and I've been in total recovery mode, all about self-care. One of my new routines is the nighttime shower before bed. There's just something about washing away the day and that reflection that's been super helpful for me. I've been using one of our partners, Osea's Mega Moisture Duo. This combo body oil and body lotion are so freaking incredible. It literally feels like I'm at a spa. I realized that the secret is seaweed and other skin level ingredients that are normally reserved for face products. And that's why I was so excited when Osea became one of our partners. And, you know, we're so grateful for partners like this because one, they keep the show going, but they're also super good for all of our listeners and for our own well-being. So if you want to have that nighttime bliss like I am doing, you can get 10% off your first order site-wide with code DATEABLE at oseamalibu.com. You'll get free samples with every order and free shipping on orders over $60. So head to oseamalibu.com and use the code DATEABLE for 10% off. Let us know which products you end up going with. Share them in social. Super excited to see what you end up choosing.
This episode is made possible by Armoire. Armoire makes getting dressed easy. With a clothing rental membership from Armoire, build the perfect wardrobe with brands that are high quality, unique, and recommended just for you. All you have to do is take a 5-minute style quiz and select items from your dynamic, personalized closet. The styles show up at your door in as little as 2 days. Then when you're ready for new clothes, just swap them out. Listen, I live in Southern California. There is absolutely no need for puffer coats or any sort of those winter jackets. But when I travel anywhere else in the world in these cold months, I'm often burdened with the task of getting winter clothes. And now with Armoire, I can just rent my winter wardrobe. It's brilliant. Right now, our listeners can give Armoire a try and get up to 50% off their first month. That's up to $125 off. Just visit armoire.style/dateable. That is armoire.style, spelled ARMOIRE.style/DATEABLE to get up to 50% off your first month and never worry about what to wear again. Try Armoire today.
Do you think some of it is like, because I know personally, like if I've gained weight, for example, I'm less sexual feeling, or like when I know like men I've been with have been super stressed and that kind of changes things. Do you think like some of it has to do with those type of, I want to say internal, external factors because they're about you, but they're not about your partner necessarily?
Right.
Yes, I definitely think stress like makes it really hard to be turned on, and you need to like take time and relax in order to get back in your body and want sex. And I do feel like body image is a huge thing for women and really infuriating as far as I'm concerned, because women are so sexy at all different shapes and sizes.
I know. Women are so much better naked
so
than men.
sexy,
but we're
you know?
also self-critical
So
of ourselves.
self-critical.
Not even,
Yeah, but why? Because
Right.
societal messages are constantly, we're being bombarded. I do
Right.
not, I will not look at a fashion magazine. When I go into a store that has them, I turn them around.
Yeah,
funniest part, at least I've noticed times when I felt it, the men I'm with don't notice it at all.
At
No,
all.
of course not.
At
It's
all.
All in your own head. Like
Totally.
it's
They're like,
totally
what
in
do you
your head.
mean? You look great.
Yeah, they're like, why are we not having sex?
Yeah.
Yeah. That's just so crazy the way we internalize sex and how that gets expressed with our partners. Met this girl the other day and she's been with her boyfriend for 8 years. They haven't had sex for over a year. And she told me 2 things that alarmed me. One is, it's all on me. I'm so busy and stressed all the time. I just don't feel like it. And 2, it's okay because he's not asking for it either.
Yeah, that's a disaster.
That is, right?
Yes.
Isn't that the first thing that goes in a relationship? Like if the sex goes, then the relationship's going downhill.
Yeah,
right?
and the first part where she thinks it's all her is a problem because they're going to have to resolve that as a team, you know? And I don't think it's a good idea for her to assume that her partner doesn't want it just because he's not asking, you know? And so I think you definitely, like, she should bring it up. And if he's saying, yeah, I'm fine, I don't need sex to be part of my relationship, I want to live celibate for whatever. There are some people like that. I think it's a very low number, you know?
Right.
But likely he's masturbating, which is fine. There's nothing wrong with that. But I think in the long term, you know, unless you address it, it's going to probably become a problem in the relationship.
How would you advise her to address this situation?
Just to say, you know, I know we haven't had, but I mean, that means she has to open the can of worms, you know, but like to say, I know we haven't had sex for a year. How are you feeling about that?
But it's kind of the elephant in the room, I would think.
Right, because he knows. I mean,
Right, they both know. It's not like a mystery.
Yeah, he's not like, oh, what? It's been a year?
So,
but sometimes when you start to have the conversation about it, like things open up.
right. It's like, what other issues are there that aren't necessarily related to sex that are causing that lack of intimacy?
Yeah.
So for anybody who thinks it's fine, we're not having sex, we're just going through a phase, you should address it right away, right?
Really a good idea.
Well, I think it's a good segue to takeaways. So I think one that you definitely said is a lot of it, I think there's definitely the physical component, but the emotional component too, whether that's your own self, things that you need to work through, or with a partner when there might be some other reason that the intimacy is gone.
Yep.
I think that was super interesting. I think my other big takeaway is like, just because like you think there might be a physical limitation, there's always ways to make things work. And really, we say this like a broken record, but it like all comes back to communication. And I think sometimes with sex, you're like, oh, that's the one place I don't have to communicate because it's physical.
Yes.
But that is not the case.
And can I add something to that?
Yes, please do.
Not just communication, but a willingness to be creative and to not think sex is supposed to happen in this particular way, at this particular time, spontaneously, with these particular people. You know, we have all sorts of rules that are in our mind that aren't really true.
That's a great
right? Like
takeaway.
I'm supposed to be able to orgasm from intercourse. That is a ridiculous rule that leaves many, many, many women out of the picture and even some men.
Right.
You know, we get men who are like, I can't orgasm with my partner's touch. Right? They're not orgasming from oral sex. They're not orgasming from intercourse. So what? Does that mean they can't have a great sex life?
Right.
No, they can just do really exciting, fun things and then they finish themselves off at the end.
Right. Or does
Right?
it mean that you're bad at sex because of those?
Not
like I
at
think that's
all.
when people probably will come thinking that something's wrong with them.
Always.
My biggest takeaway is a lot of how you experience sex starts with how you relate to yourself, and you have to have sex with yourself first. I talked to these girls about the other day, and they said, I didn't know I liked a certain thing until I tried an object in a certain way. And I related so hard because TMI right now, I didn't know certain stimulation actually stems from my experience with pillows when I was a kid.
Yes.
All
That's
right?
not TMI. Thank you for saying it.
And I am totally open about it. I tell all my partners about it. My first orgasm, I remember I was like 7.
Yes.
And I had a pillow in between my legs and I was squeezing. And I thought this was like the best sensation in the world.
Yes.
I told my mom about it and she said, don't do it again. Your vagina's going to explode.
Oh,
That's what she told me.
Oh, that's horrible.
So I never wanted to do it again in front of her, but I did
Right.
it behind closed
Thank
doors.
goodness.
Until this day, I still know that's the best sensation
Interesting.
I can get, and it can get me to orgasm.
Yes.
Interesting.
I'm so glad you tell your partners because I've had women who masturbate a certain way and then they go their entire sexual life with partners never having an orgasm and they're only having orgasm when they're by themselves with their pillows or with their vibrator. And it's like, bring your pillow, bring your vibrator. You know?
Oh my God, bring it all.
Bring it all because, you know, and then your partner can be giving you all sorts of stimulation. It's not like they're useless at that moment, you know?
Having a pillow in between your legs may not be the typical porn that you see. So I know I brought this up to partners where they're just so surprised. They're like, wait, show me. How does this work? Because they're so used to that image of a woman with her fingers in between her clit and like just rubbing so hard
Yeah.
and she's screaming. I'm like, no. That's not how it looks when I'm masturbating.
Yeah.
So it's good to bring it up to just show that there are all different facets of what could turn you on.
Yeah.
That's a really good takeaway too. Like it kind of ties into yours about getting creative is like what works for you guys as a couple too.
Yes.
It's not what you see in porn. It's not maybe what works for your best friend and his wife or her wife, her husband, whoever it may be.
All of the above.
It's what works for you. And then if you don't know, like how do you either work with a sex coach or go to sex parties or just explore with your own partner?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
The other takeaway I have, this was mind-blowing when you said this to me. Fantasy doesn't have to be monogamous.
Yeah.
That's basically what you said. And I love that because I kind of encourage my partners to go to strip clubs or to go flirt with women because I do think they get more aroused. And when they come home, they are more revved up to go.
Yep.
But I mean, some people may not find that kosher for them because they want to feel like their partner only has eyes for them.
Yep.
But you're so right. When we stimulate so many other areas with different people, different sceneries, different situations, then we're able to play out these fantasies even better in the bedroom.
Yes.
Awesome. Do you have any last takeaways before we do a rapid fire question round?
Oh, I think let's just rapid fire. I'm
Okay.
ready.
Rapid fire.
Let's do it.
So we're going to give you a scenario and you're going to give us like a very quick line of advice
Okay.
for the scenario.
Rapid fire.
Rapid fire.
I'm nervous. Okay, go ahead.
How do you keep a spark alive after being together for a while?
You have to find out what deeply turns each other on and not just hope that it's going to like suddenly happen without you talking about it.
Okay. How do you get rid of the urge to want to sleep with other people when you've been with someone for a while?
I don't think you get rid of the urge. You let yourself feel the urge. You just don't act on it.
I know it's not my answer, but or you discuss open relationships if it
Yes.
works for you guys.
Find another way. Yeah.
For sure.
How do you tell a partner that you have an STI?
I think you just say, hey, let's have the STI talk. And I usually tell people, like, let there be some connection, meet the person, unless they insist like having it before, over chat or something like that. But meet the person, have a connection, and then say, hey, there's something that I need to let you know before it goes any further.
When do you know a fetish is disruptive to your relationship?
So I think fetishes can be totally incorporated into sex life. There's nothing inherently wrong with having a fetish. In fact, I just hate the idea that we sort of categorize. I think romance is a fetish. It's just one that's very socially acceptable.
True.
That makes sense.
It's normalized. Yeah.
So I think it only is a problem in your relationship if your partner is disturbed by it in some way. Like if you can't navigate a sex life that includes that.
Okay. Is squirting genetic or something that can be learned?
Woo!
I learned.
You learned.
Yes.
Okay, so you're living proof.
I'm
that
living
it
Is there
can be
like
learned.
a book we can buy on Amazon or something? Because that's what my friend did.
Yes, there actually is. I'm trying to remember. It's by
course there's
somebody
a
named
book.
Deborah Sundahl, Sundahl. She talks about how to learn. But basically, you just got to get a good hook on that G-spot and like go, come hither, come here, come here, and like kind of pull towards the back of the pelvic wall. And then when you take your fingers out, you say push out. You push out like you're trying to pee, and then you go back in, stimulate, then pull the fingers out, then push out, and then go back in, stimulate. And then eventually, usually it happens. If you feel like you're going to pee, you're not actually going to pee, you're going to ejaculate. So at that moment, you need to let it go.
It's kind of like an orgasm.
Yeah.
I feel like I need
It
to
is
pee
an
when I
orgasm.
read.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you feel like you need to pee when you're orgasming, you are a woman on the verge of squirting.
Why does it come so naturally for some women and
Yeah,
not
some
for
women
others?
it's just totally part of their orgasmic, like that's the way their body orgasms. It's just like wetly. Some others of us have to learn.
Last question. If you're a virgin in your 30s or 40s, what do you do?
I love working with virgins in their 30s or 40s. I had this one client where I taught him everything about seduction and kind of build up, and he had sex with a woman for the first time in his early 40s, and she was like, how many women have you done this with? You're an animal. She was like accusing him of being some kind of player.
Oh my God.
And I was
taught him well.
So proud of myself.
Amazing.
What about a female virgin?
Yeah, I think a female virgin, I mean, if you want to lose your virginity as a woman, it's not that hard. So I think there's probably emotional reasons or like something holding her back, fear or trauma. So, doing some work to kind of help her feel safe enough and like find someone who she feels comfortable enough with to do it is important.
Nice.
Awesome.
Rapid fire success. Any other last takeaways, thoughts?
I mean, I think we covered it all. That rapid fire was just getting all those last minute questions out.
I'm going to go buy this Mimi Soft silicone vibrator.
That's your takeaway? And the book on Amazon. We're all set.
I have 3 of them, so you know.
But I mean, this is the thing about sex is that you always learn something new from just talking about it with others. So it's like continuing education all the time.
People don't want to talk about it either. Like, I think there's definitely a subset of people, and then there's a larger discussion that just makes everyone more comfortable.
Let's talk about sex.
Yes.
Let's keep talking about sex. I love it. Celeste, if people want to reach out to you, how can they do that?
They can find us on celesteanddanielle.com, or if you want to become a coach, somatica.com, SOMATICA.
Fabulous.
Awesome.
All right, everyone. I hope you all get some tonight, either from yourself or with a partner or multiple partners. You deserve it. You know, it's a great stress reliever. And we're going to keep this conversation about sex. We'll have more topics related to it. If you'd like to be a guest on our show, please reach out to us, dateablepodcast.com. Okay, we're going to wrap this up. Stay dateable. Your action item for this week is to make sexual wellness a priority in your life. If you're spending time focusing on mental wellness, physical wellness, we should place equal importance on sexual wellness. And that doesn't necessarily mean having lots of sex. It means learning more about your body, other people's bodies, and just educating yourself on the topic of pleasure. Want to continue the conversation? First, tag us in any post with hashtag StayDateable. Then head on over to our website, dateablepodcast.com. There you'll find all the episodes, as well as articles, videos, and our coaching services with vetted industry experts. You can also find our premium Why series, where we dissect, analyze, and offer solutions to some of the most common dating conundrums. To connect with us, find Dateable Podcast on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. We're also downloadable on Spotify, iTunes, and other podcast platforms. Your feedback is valuable to us, so don't forget to leave us a review on iTunes. And most importantly, remember to stay dateable.